But to share with us the experiences in your community about mortgages, about all of the problems of the housing industry and the crash and what's happened in your community.
If the gentleman would yield, it's so right. I mean, when you look at this whole financial crash, it is a chain of events, and it starts out in the neighborhood. There's something that we need to talk about, something called a yield spread premium. What that is, it's the amount of money that somebody selling a loan can get if they steer you from a loan you may qualify for to a high-cost loan. And so there's a lot of people who might have qualified for prime loans, but were literally steered. And then you had another development, something called a ninja loan. No job, no assets. And yet you can get money to buy a house. And then there's something called a liar loan. Now that's a curious thing to call a loan because it was stated income. You could just write down whatever you said your income was. There was no verification of that income. And then after you got into these loans, they had terms and conditions like prepayment penalties. So that if you wanted to get out of this loan and get a fairer loan, you really couldn't do it unless you paid somebody off down the line. And so these loans, people got into them, they were being sold, and the people who made those loans really didn't need to make sure that they were well underwritten. It didn't matter to them if these folks could pay the money back because they would simply sell that paper on the secondary market. Now, what was the effect in the neighborhood? The effect in the neighborhood is once the housing values began to flatten and decline, people couldn't pay it, and once they couldn't refinance because they had negative equity in the home, they couldn't make the payments, and they ended up getting foreclosed upon. And in neighborhoods all across this country, California, your state was hit hard, Florida, Arizona, but even my state of Minnesota hit very hard. People started being foreclosed from their homes, and short sales began to happen. Property values began to decline, and neighborhoods began to go into the wrong direction. And so there was a lot of difficulty right there on the front line. The front line was foreclosure of homes, abandoned properties, high grass, dead dogs, expenses to the local government, because if you have a house where people are paying property taxes, that's coming into this local government. But if you have an abandoned property, that's an expense to the local government. More pressure on local government budgets, intense difficulty, tough times on Main Street. I yield back to the gentleman.
The gentleman is absolutely right. I know I see this in my own district and, in fact, in my own neighborhood and in the families of my staff. We have on my staff members of families who have lost their homes, who have had to do the short sales, who got into these mortgages that they couldn't possibly pay, that had these readjustments,
right.
All of those things. Now, what was causing that? It was Wall Street. Wall Street was making it happen by creating these collateralized debt obligations,
right.
by the fancy financial manipulations, on all that was going on. And why were they doing it? So they can make a big profit. And they did.